I didn't think they were going to get this pissed off.
Just shut up and keep driving!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Inforunners Podcast. And today we are going to be exploring the idea of starter ships being built to be bad. And this is something that has bothered both of us. I'm Dasein was here.
And this is Hayes.
Unlike in real life, where you have cars, planes, boats, they may have economy level or entry level versions, but they still serve a purpose. Just because you have a motorized dinghy does not mean you're going to throw it away when you pick up a yacht. You still might have a use for it, being able to go from place to place. Manufacturers do not design ships as well as other items in life just to be crap. They are built to have a use, and even if it's a basic use, they have a use.
The second level starter ships like the Avenger and the Reliant, but unfortunately these ships are the exception as opposed to the rule as to what starter ships really should be. They have ability to be very good at the roles they are doing, specialist in certain roles, which will allow them to outlive the initial starter ship idea of being generally do a bit of everything but not very good at something, as opposed to the Avenger, which is very good at cargo and combat. So if you ever need a small combat ship, the Avenger is a very good ship to turn to. It can also do basic transportation with cargo. The Reliant is especially good because it actually serves as dedicated industry ship with regards to science, things like news fan, as well as its cargo. And hopefully when they eventually bring the combat version of that out, that will also serve very well. Its weapons are very much in line with better ships. These two ships are most likely going to be kept when people move up to other ships because they can serve very well in their singular roles, their specialized roles. At the same time, they would be very good as companion ships to larger ships. I mean, just look at the Reliant. That's a two-seater. You've suddenly got a transport-capable ship. And the Avenger, well, it has prisoner pods, so hopefully eventually they'll allow for some seating. But the idea is that these are very sort of specialized ships.
The thing is, the two main starter ships, and that's the ones we need to focus on here, the two main starter ships, the Mustang and the Aurora, they are literally built to be bad. They should have roles outside of just being something you have for a short time and then throw away. The Aurora is a great idea, being as it could be a ship that you can load some cargo in and bounce around in the sector. But the thing is, being as it doesn't have those extra seats that allow it to actually be a proper sedan, you might say, that really gimps it from being able to do more than just its base job.
Well, think about it. The Aurora is supposed to be the everyman ship. If we compare this to an everyman's car, what car has a single seat? It should be a four-seater. It should be able to be used as a light shuttle with some cargo. And then suddenly it goes from being a small, gimpy ship that you want to trade away so you can do some better things to something you might save around for later to use as a shuttle with larger ships and a bit of cargo for resupply. And there's nothing to say that you can't, like, if you remove the bed, you'd have room for seats. And it can still take on cargo from the big storage box underneath. It just doesn't make sense, the idea that they even design a spaceship that's supposed to be like an everyman's car, but it only has a single seat.
Definitely. And then the Mustang. Yes, the Mustang is going to be getting a rework, but I do want to say, based on their current track record with the starter ships, it doesn't look like they're going to be changing much in that line of thought. And especially when you look at the Aurora only getting an aesthetic rework.
It needs a rework. I mean, that Mustang's a death trap. Its firepower is pathetic. If you would actually buy that as a military base like the Delta, well, you'd choose something else. Why wouldn't you just go straight for the Avenger? It's cheaper.
Well, the Avenger's cheaper. It does its job better. I mean, pretty much any of the lower ships, even going to the 300 series, does the Mustang's job better. And if you looked at it in real life, the Mustang would never be a ship that it would actually exist, being as what sane person would be like, oh, I want to do a little bit of combat here. I'm going to be a mercenary for escorts. and pick up a ship that literally cannot do that job and is no threat whatsoever. Literally, the only thing this ship can do is maybe race. Period.
Eventually, they should do a rework on the Mustang. I will be sorely disappointed if they don't make it able to be competitive in racing and perhaps half decent in combat, because those are the two things that would save the Mustang and give it a legitimate reason to be held on to after you've moved on to bigger ships.
Yes, and the other ship that we want to talk about is the other secondary starter ship, with quotes especially on this one, is the 300 series. It really does need to rework their planning. We don't know what they're going to be doing, but the thing is, it really doesn't fit any real role or niche. It doesn't have seats to be like your luxury car transport. The only one of the series that really provides a good role is actually going to be your racer, because it does that job really well. But your
I'm
base
not even
model,
sure you can upgrade to the racer there. I think the 350R is like its own special thing with the dual engines. The thing is that the 325A is maybe somewhat good, but then they nerfed all the hard points and everything that wasn't the 325A, and I'm like, you can't even upgrade from the base models to the 325A. What the hell? I mean, if you need it to be somewhat decent at combat and have other uses as well, this ship's lacking in too many areas to be considered a ship you're going to keep after you move up into another ship.
well, why would you even move up to it in the first place? I hate to say the Aurora has more uses than that, as well as the Avenger, and they are actually more affordable.
Hopefully in the 300 series update, they will relook into this and hopefully balance it and give it a purpose and a role that will give it use extending out into the future, as opposed to thinking as a throwaway ship is what it is right now.
So that's basically the concept of the whole thing. The starter ships, and that's including your secondary tiers, the early tier ships, they need to be either a little bit more focused and not just all around and not as good at what they do, being as the ships need to be still viable for you to use later on. Yes, you don't expect a Avenger to be able to fully beat out your Vanguard in a combat situation, but your ships need to be able to perform a role. That way, if you move on to other things, let's say I move on from my Mustang to do cargo, I still might want to keep it around so I can do some of the secondary things that aren't on my primary focus.
There's also the idea that these smaller ships can easily make good companion ships to other ships, whether it form of a escort or resupplying cargo, ferrying cargo down to surface planets, or even being able to be stored in hangars. Then you have ships like the Argo and the lack of a quantum drive. The Argo is a particularly interesting ship. It has those multiple seats. It can be used as a shuttle transport. It does the cargo-based runs, and it can also do hopefully repairs with a repair arm in a future variant. It has a small ship designed as a support ship for larger ships, and it's sort of very multi-role, and it's something that people will find useful going well into the future. It's exactly what starter ships should be, and the fact that it doesn't have a quantum drive suggests that they're trying to do this artificial tiering of making sure that starter ships are sort of kept only as an initial sort of ship that you upgrade from, and then they want this little utility ship to be something else. Now, if they suddenly gave Argo a quantum drive, why would you get an Aurora? You've got a person transport. It does take cargo. And the biggest missed opportunity here is, why have the Argo and the Aurora at all? Why don't you combine those two ships into a single ship? Why don't you make all starter ships have that level of role flexibility and utility in order to make them useful going into the future, even past those initial stages when you first start out in the game?
Well, the thing is, the Argo is a great example also because it is a great ship if you just wanted to shuttle stuff around in a system or a small area around a planet and some of the surrounding stations and maybe even the moons. A quantum drive would allow it to literally be your space taxi. And one thing I have to say about it, what they say during the spring sale, if you're considering a career as a merchant, the Argo MPUV is an excellent utility vehicle capable of hauling people or small batches of cargo. Ideally, the smaller starter ships should not be general all-rounders, but at the lowest tier, they should be more specialized in an area. The Aurora, kind of make it a four-seater, the type of shuttle that can carry cargo and people around. The Mustang, make it your small light fighter that can do racing as well as could be a nice little tiny interceptor. Maybe not as good as some of your dedicated pure military vessels, but at least competent enough at its job that you're not going to be laughing why anyone bought it.
Every starter ship should be a viable alternative to use in endgame content, either by yourself as a companion to a larger ship or fleet, as opposed to something you upgrade from and forget forever and, throw it away. So what do you guys think? Do you think the idea of starter ships having a more specialized, more broader purpose to allow them to participate more in endgame content as opposed to being a throwaway starter ship in which after you've upgraded from it, you'll never use it again? Tell us what you think. We'd love to hear your comments.
Please remember to like and subscribe, and as always,
catch you around in the verse.